So, another segment in this Auto Insurance 101 includes a discussion about the most important part of your insurance policy that most people do not understand and do not end up purchasing. And we've done segments on it before on our blog and our video, our channel, YouTube channel. But it relates to the necessity to purchase uninsured motorist coverage. Now, we have talked about already in this series the fact that when you buy Florida car insurance, you're buying basically, aside from the things that are required by law, which are the personal injury protection coverage and the property damage liability coverage, you're buying all the other components of your auto policy a la carte. The most important component is your uninsured or underinsured motorist component. And that is located on the declaration page. It's called uninsured motorist generally, even though uninsured motorist is the same thing as underinsured motorist. And it is, as you can see here, if you looked at all the cost of all the other types of insurance you can get on your auto policy, uninsured motorist is not very expensive, relatively speaking, next to these other coverages, right? So you can get uninsured motorist coverage for about a fourth of what you get your injury coverage for or your property damage coverage. And here's why it's important again. We started with this premise when we talked about uninsured motorists before in other videos, but let me remind you. Most people get the bare minimum insurance. The bare minimum insurance in Florida has zero coverage for the other person's injuries. Remember, Florida only requires that you have personal injury protection coverage of $10,000 and property damage liability coverage for $10,000, even though this one says $25,000. You only have to have 10 of property damage liability and 10 of PIP. Personal injury protection coverage is your coverage. So it's your medical benefit that you're buying for your own self if you're in a car wreck. Florida law requires that you don't have to have any coverage for hurting the other person in a car wreck, even if you're at fault. Zero. And that's significant because most of the states in this country, 37 other states, require that you have coverage for the injuries you cause other people when you're at fault for a wreck. Florida doesn't have that. So you could be in a wreck with somebody, they could legally have insurance in Florida, have a legal policy, they could be at fault for the wreck, and they have zero for your injuries. So once your PIP runs out at $10,000, there's nothing else there for you. Unless you buy uninsured motorist coverage. If you buy uninsured motorist coverage, it picks up either where the other driver doesn't have coverage for injury, or it's on top of what they did purchase. And that's where the underinsured motorist comes into play. Okay, so you're an uninsured motorist. If you're an at-fault driver in a car wreck and you have no injury coverage for the other person, you're uninsured. That is an uninsured driver, an uninsured motorist. But what happens many times is they have the $10,000 injury coverage, like this one does. They did buy injury coverage for the other driver, just in case they were at fault for a wreck. But it's not enough for your injuries. So then you would need on your policy this uninsured motorist, but in that context, it would be underinsured because the person did have coverage. It was just under the amount that is necessary for your injury. So the uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage works like this. As soon as you get the other at-fault driver's limit on bodily injury coverage, if your case is still worth more money, you get to go to your policy and ask for whatever uninsured motorist coverage you have. In this circumstance, you have $10,000, and it costs $54 to have it. Sounds like a deal, right? You get 10 grand for 54 bucks. Now, the other thing about uninsured motorists that's important to understand is this whole non-stacked, stacked difference. Because when you purchase uninsured motorist coverage, which by the way comes with a full policy. So if you ever call your insurance agent and you say, I want a full coverage, you get everything, including uninsured motorist. But what people do many times, and this is devastating that I have to deliver the news to them when they're in a wheelchair or somebody's in their family has died, right? And I got to tell them there's no coverage for the wreck. And everybody did everything right in the case, like nobody broke any laws and there's no coverage. The way that works is when you're doing the process of buying car insurance, if you elect not to have uninsured motorists, it's so important that the law says they have to get your signature on a separate piece of paper rejecting the uninsured motorist coverage. We're going to put on below this video a link to one of those rejection forms, and so you can see what I'm talking about. But that's how serious this topic is. The law requires that they actually get in writing, and you have to sign a separate piece of paper rejecting the uninsured motorist coverage. If they don't have that, or they can't find it, or they didn't give you that piece of paper, then the law assumes that you do have it in whatever amount you had your bodily injury coverage in. So, the takeaway is this. If you get a policy, or when you get a policy, not if, when you get a car insurance policy, always get the uninsured motorist. Always get it and as much as you can afford, because it's really important. Always buy the stacked version if you can afford it. Here's how stacked works. If you have more than one car in your household and the limits are $10,000 on uninsured motorist, it's 10,000 times the number of cars in your household. So instead of having 10,000, let's say you had 3 cars in your household, your total uninsured motorist benefit is $30,000. So it's whatever your number is times the number of cars in your house if you have stacked. Now, if you only have one car, you don't need to have stacked coverage. Okay, but if you have more than one car on the same car insurance, you should always get the stacked form of uninsured motorist coverage. All right, takeaway, most important coverage on a policy is uninsured motorist coverage. Get as much as you can afford. Always get the stacked version. If you have questions about uninsured motorist coverage, you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com, or you can call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. Thank you.